Hello, and welcome back to my writer studio. And welcome to Take Note. I'm still finding my way around this platform, but I come here to talk about things I love: notebooks, paper, pens, fountain pens often, and writing, and how those analog tools really overlap in my life as a writer, but as a human being who's trying to be aware and conscientious and engaged in the world around me without doom scrolling, right? I get so overwhelmed by some of the news that comes across my phone that I use my analog tools, my notebooks, in part because I love them, but also in part because they help ground me and really develop and work through ideas to become a better writer, to become a better person. They also help me keep track of my life. I know many of you can relate. I'm a big list maker. I have a million notebooks. I have three that I use every day, and they each have their own designation. Today, I'm going to talk about one, and this is my pocket notebook. I actually will refer to two because I have two. This one stays on my desk. It's mostly a to-do list. I use it on my desk when I have things come up while I'm writing and I need to make a note so I'm not distracted. Once I make a note in that file in that notebook, I call it a parking notebook. I have two right now. I have the Square Rhodia, which includes script notes and so forth, and then this is my little to-do list that I keep there. So when I'm working on another project or interviewing someone or a fleeting thought comes into my head, I can scribble it out, right, without changing out the file, without saving the document, just get it out, and then my mind is free from clutter. But this one, can you see that there? This is, let's see if I can get that in the light better. My Traveler's Company notebook. It's not the original Midori. It's made in Thailand. I've had it for about 4 years and I love this. And I'm shocked. I heard for years, because I watch all the videos that you guys are watching too, about how people love this little piece of leather because that's really all it is. It's just a flap. The notebook is then held inside with a cluster of bands. You could see my pouch here that right now it's a cotton pouch that I'm using for my wallet and I have notes and receipts in there. But these notebooks then are held right inside with that band. And I thought, it can't be that big of a deal. And I love this thing. It is a big deal. I carry it around the house just because I love touching it. I have it with me. It's like a security blanket, but it's a very real tool for me as a writer too. And I'm going to talk about how I use that today. So, a pocket notebook is awesome because it fits obviously in your pocket. This goes in my bag. I don't stuff it into my pocket. You can take out the individual notebooks. They slide right out in this middle band there. So you could just take the notebook if you wanted, the refill. I like the cover. I like having it all together, and I really like the feel of it, the thickness of it. And as a writer, I don't want to be anywhere without a pen and paper. And I know so many people now who are using their notes app on the smartphones, and they are even writing essays on the smartphones or short stories. That is not for me. And I'll tell you why. For me, a big part of being a professional writer is being engaged in the world. It's noticing things, it's observing things around me to make my characters real so that when I'm creating my fiction, they're plausible because I'm seeing these things reflected in real life. I also write nonfiction books and I want to pay attention to how people are interacting, how I'm feeling in any given moment, what I'm noticing. Often we become more aware of ourselves when we notice what we are paying attention to. And attention, that's another aspect of this, right? In this world, my attention is fried. I'm always spending part of my day on a notebook, part of my day on the computer, drafting articles and essays, revising proposals, doing social media to promote my books or my classes, and all those kind of things. My mind gets so busy that when I sit down and I start scrolling through, I just become more revved up. And that is tough when it comes to finding calm and peace in your life. But it's also tough when you're a writer who needs to slow down to write, to develop ideas, to revise over and over, to see what's working on the page and change it and adapt and grow. It also is tricky when it comes to developing the tools of a writer. I think one of the superpowers humans have, not just writers, but all of us, we have the ability to notice things, to become aware of ourselves and others, and we have the ability to feel those things. And when I carry my pocket notebook, it gives me a tool in my hand to capture those big or little feelings, to capture those observations, to write down things that strike me funny, and plenty of lists. I mean, I'm going to take my, I'm just going to slide my pouch right out. You saw fall by the wave, like this is the pouch, it just slides right out. And I dropped a pencil board that I had, this old calendar from Sterling Ink, but it's a nice piece of art and it's plastic, so I just put it behind the pages. But my notebook not only allows me to plan and keep up with deadlines and daily schedules and appointments and where my daughter's going to be and where my family's going to be and interviews that I'm doing for the podcast. But I also have a notebook. When it gets full, I can easily trade it out. And this captures everything. This has notes about this, about take note about the videos I want to do here, talking about story and structure and how gratitude helps us be better writers. It has notes about inks and fountain pens I want to try. I'm really interested in trying the Lilliput. Maybe I'll get my hands on one of those. It's a Kaweco. I'll get my hands on one of those and we'll take it for a test drive on the show. It's got notes about videos, and then it's got, you know, directions for my cat who's been sick and the way to treat her and take care of that and the medicines and the times. So this is really the driver of my life. You can see I've even got a blueprint. Can you see that there? I've even got a blueprint of the way I want to lay out a future notebook. There we go. I do blueprint patterns, make sure I have all the components in here. And at the end of this notebook, I'll take out the things that I want to carry forward and I'll put them in a selected notebook. Like right here, I have a note about a writer's tip and consciousness. That'll go in another notebook that I keep just on writing. This is my everyday carry. This is my catch-all, my brain dump, my everything. But the other thing it does for me is it helps me be mindful, and that's good for my writing. It's good for my body, and that's good for my writing. Mindfulness is becoming present. It's simply getting still and becoming aware, not judging our feelings, just noticing our thoughts, noticing our environment, not commenting, just paying attention. And research tells us that when we are mindful, our heart rate slows, our stress eases, we feel greater well-being and peace. We also have better cognitive function because when we're relaxed, our minds are creative and working and able to not be so overloaded with information. So we slow down and our brains actually become creative and process and do the job they're supposed to do, which is solve problems and help us make decisions and be flexible in our life, adapt to the situations so we can have a good life, right? When we are mindful, when we become present to our body and to our environment, that's when we feel our best. There's no stress because in this moment, we're not worried about the next. And most of our stress really comes from worrying about what might happen, right? We become present in our body, and that helps lower the stress from mentally, physically, and creatively. So we become engaged in this space. And it feels really good. But the other thing it does is when I'm out in the world with my EDC, my Travelers Company passport size notebook, and you can see it's nothing fancy. I don't decorate my notebooks. I'm very minimal. I've got ink test swatches there, a napkin from Southwest Airlines, which I was on a trip last year, and here's what was on the cocktail napkin. The best ideas are born on napkins. And I thought, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. But I put it right in my traveler's notebook. So maybe the best ideas are in my traveler's notebook. In any event, to-do lists, all of that stuff. When I'm out in the world, I observe and I take notes on what I'm seeing. And before I do that, I become mindful. I just take a minute to use all my senses to explore my environment. What's happening while I'm buying bread? The other day, I was waiting for my daughter in the car, and I was just watching people and thinking. I had the window open, a summer breeze was blowing through. And it's in those moments that we free up our creative mind. We start drawing associations, we start noticing things that then turn into great character quirks or observations that help us focus our essays or bring up new memories that can lead to new work. The challenge is that we've got to slow down and pull out our notebook and be mindful, soak up the environment with all our senses, not just what we see. As writers, we often rely heavily on what we see. I want to know what the smell of the hot sun on the tar road, the tar parking lot smells like. I want to know about the chatter in the background between two people. I saw a guy walk out of a bank and he stopped and he looked at the receipt and then his whole body moved and he shuffled around and he walked back in. And the reason I want to know those things is threefold. One is, as writers, it's our job to translate our observations and emotions into the written word so that we can tell the stories, so that our characters can feel, or that our essays are clear and powerful. And we have to find the words to do that. When we are out in the world observing these real world emotions, these real world behaviors from people like us, then we have a little distance and we can start to see the mechanics of the emotion. We can start to see the mechanics of the behavior, the senses, the smell, all of that intensifies. And when we are challenged to record those observations in our notebook, we find a way to put words to them. So instead of telling you in my writing that a woman knocked on my car window and said hello and she was nice, I don't know what nice means when I read that in writing. What I think of as nice might be different for you. But in my notebook, I can write down what happened, and I can also write down what she looked like, how she behaved. Was she smiling? Did she brush the hair back from her head? And all of that are details of her expression that I can then use in my writing to show you what's going on, to paint that picture for you. And that is the big difference between showing and telling. In telling, I would give you some vague responses and I'd say, a woman knocked on my window and she was friendly. In showing, I will say, I heard a click on the window and I rolled it down and so was standing there, a big smile on her face. She brushed her hair that was blowing in the breeze behind her ear. And we had a conversation about work. I don't know. I'm just making it up on the fly. But that is the start of the scene. That's a wholly different experience for the reader than saying a woman knocked on my window and she was nice. You see what I'm going for? I need the raw resources to write stories and scenes. So this is the raw material. This is it right here. A painter has paint and a canvas. This is what I have, a pen and a notebook. And I capture those details and those sensory experiences. The other thing I use my pocket notebook for when I'm out and about, when I'm in the wild, is when I write down thoughts, not just observations, but whatever I'm experiencing in my day, my shopping list or stress I may be having, then it disrupts those internal voices, that overthinking, those thought behaviors, those patterns of thought that get in our way and we get stuck in and ruminate on. Taking them out of my head by putting them physically on paper with a pen helps me free from that. It's a non-judgmental way of observing myself. I just write it down. I'm feeling frustrated. Could it be a result of this happening? And then it's off my list, right? It distances me from the situation that bothered me. And I become an observer of my own self. Just like I'm watching other people and I'm watching the ducks across the road. Yesterday, a lady came out. I live on this busy street, and she came out with a flashing light and stopped the 4 lanes of traffic to escort a goose across the road to the pond. I thought that was awesome, and it reminded me why I love people. And it also reminded me of a character behavior I could use in my novel. I don't know if I will. So I love to observe my surroundings that way and mark it down, because not only will I remember it, but I also find the words to give to it. And that's a good way to enhance my work. But I also do it to short circuit my own ruminating thoughts. Once it's on the paper, I don't have to hold all that mental clutter in there. I can offload it. And that makes room for ease, for more creative associations, from better thinking. We know that a better mood also helps us be more creative, and uh, the notebook can be a tool for that, especially when I'm frustrated or I'm so busy, life is so full that I forget that I need to slow down and just take a breath and be mindful of the moment. When I do that and then open the notebook, it lands me right in that place. It helps me engage in my life in that moment. And it doesn't feel so fleeting, and it certainly doesn't feel so stressful. It can really help us distance from our own troubling thoughts, because when we write in our notebooks, our pocket notebooks, it becomes, we become a little detached. We become almost like a party to the situation, an observer of ourselves. And research shows that helps us ease stress and manage our emotions in a way that makes them um, less powerful or less all-consuming, and that's useful to me. That helps me become uh, more aware, and then I can make better choices, have some clarity about the situation, rather than getting stuck in the rumination. And along the emotional front, one of the biggest challenges for me as a writer is how to describe emotions, how to show emotions in my characters without telling people that they feel sad. Because sad, again, is one of those vague words. My way of expressing sadness is probably different than your way. So I'm really interested in the unique ways we can write emotions on the page. In my traveler's notebook, I can watch those interactions with others and I can capture some of that. If the guy walking out of the bank was frustrated, he looked at his receipt, he shook his head, he was trying to make sense of it, he kind of threw his arms down and he walked back into the bank. I don't know what he was feeling, but we know humans are pretty good at interpreting gestures and expressions and tone. And watching that, I felt like he was frustrated. And I captured not that he was frustrated, but that he shook his head, that he slammed his fist down against his leg when he dropped the receipt. And that gave me some actions that at some point I will come back to my notebook, and maybe that'll make itself into a story when I'm writing about somebody who's frustrating. What does frustration look like? Because when we are alone in front of our notebook or at the computer and we are writing new material, it can be hard to call up those big emotions. When we're out in the wild and we are mindful and observing and noting in our notebook, we are tuned in and acquiring all that raw material, all that rock and stone that can be then turned into gold when we sit down to work. Whether you're doing essays, nonfiction, memoir, whether you're doing fiction, it's the raw material that we need to bring our stories alive. And it all happens here in my pocket notebook. Um, my security, my writer's tool, right? I take it everywhere. I take a bunch of notebooks around with me. We'll talk about some of the others as we go along, but this is a big one. This helps me become present and more engaged and mindful in my own life. And then I'm able to observe non-judgmentally and just soak up what it means to be a human on this planet, record those notes and observations so they can help me as a writer, right? People are curious. I loved to hear, the eavesdrop on those conversations and watch how we interact with each other. And when I slow down to do that in this device, I find that I get better at it overall. One thing we know is the world is competing for our attention in a way that we've never experienced before. We are bombarded by information all over. It's hard to stay focused, keep our concentration, and be deliberate in our attention. The more we practice observing and writing mindful notes in a notebook about those observations, the stronger we get at focus and attention and observing. We become better at it. It becomes a habit that not only enhances our lives, but in a big way, our writing. And hey, it's just another reason to carry a notebook around, which is one of my favorite things. Thanks for watching. This has been Take Note.